stop, we have to do it. And then the person would get up and go, quando tu userete le quattro formaggio, you know, I don't know what I was saying. Anyway. Yeah. I had been writing a script about a person, a British guy who went down to the Amazon to explore the jungle in 1905, a true story about a guy named Percy Fawcett, and I spent 3 years on the script. Went down to the Amazon, drove myself a little bit crazy about it, and it became a real obsession, and so because it was a total obsession and I was really dying to make the film, it never happened. And when I found out, I was pretty certain that I wasn't going to be able to get it made. I said, okay, well, what do I do? And as these things so often happen, it's very strange, I had a dream, which was, I had remembered an experience where I was a little boy and my father took me with my grandfather to Ellis Island. I don't know if you guys, I'm here in Portugal. I don't know what Ellis Island means to you, but it's the immigration center in the United States. It was open for a very short period of time, really functioning from 1900 to about 1924. But 40% of the American population has a direct descendant that came through this place. My grandparents came through it in 1923. Anyway, the place had reopened for tourism in 1976. My father brought my brother and me there, my grandfather. My grandfather walked into the place and burst into tears. And on the tour with us was some woman who was also weepy, and of course, as a 7-year-old, I thought she was ridiculous. My grandfather started talking to her in Yiddish, and she told him the story that she had been separated from her sister at Ellis Island. Her sister had gone into quarantine, and that she never saw her again. Now, of course, this is the movies, so they get together at the end. But that stuck in my head, and I had a dream about it after this 3-year period of writing a script that I couldn't get made. And it really started with that, remembering that story that that woman told. And then around the same time, my wife and I went to the opera, and I saw Puccini's Il Trittico. There was 2 tragedies directed by William Friedkin, and the comedy was directed by Woody Allen. And you know Bill Friedkin a bit, I know, and yeah. He's great. And he's a brilliant, I mean, Bill Friedkin is the guy who made The French Connection and The Exorcist and Cruising, To Live and Die in L.A., terrific director of movies. And I think he might be an even better director of opera. The middle one, which was Suor Angelica, was so moving that my wife and I spent the better part of the entire thing just weeping. It was a little bit undone by the fact that Barbra Streisand was sitting right near us and also crying. So I thought, I don't know what that means. But anyway, so when it was an incredible passion to the story, and it was told from a woman's point of view, and there was such a kind of direct emotionality to the Puccini. And at the same time I was researching this thing about my grandfather talking to this woman whose sister had been quarantined, I had read about Enrico Caruso giving a concert for the immigrants at Ellis Island, and that he sang La Rondine by Puccini. So I thought, well, that all of a sudden took like the middle. He's asked a very simple question. I'm going on for about an hour. I don't get out that often. This is the problem. It took up, that sort of became the centerpiece of the movie, and then slowly but surely it kind of pieced itself together. Does that answer your question? Probably quite a bit.
No, that means that, it's something that came once more from your, something that you bring from your memories, and
very much so. Half the research practically was my family's photographs. They were unbelievably well chronicled. In fact, my grandparents make a kind of cameo appearance in the movie. She's holding the locket, and on the right side is her sister. On the left side is a picture of my grandparents. We had all the stuff from Ellis Island, all the paperwork, all that. We used it for the movie, all that stuff. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, it was. I want you to talk, not me. And that brought me don't for this point that most from your first movie and now this one, with always this reference of memories and the relation with at the end what is America, that's
Of course, the idea of the American. Well, the thing is that my grandparents, who play a huge role in my brain, the whole idea of the American dream was so misrepresented to me in movies and books. It's always, I came to America and it's great. The streets were paved with gold. We became rich and it was fantastic. And my grandfather came to the United States after being persecuted. My grandmother's parents literally beheaded by Cossacks. And he became like a plumber, and part of his life sort of sucked. And there was a huge melancholy, in addition to the joys of life, I'm sure. I didn't like him as a kid, because I didn't understand what he was saying. Talking to him, it was like he would sit me down, bounce on his knee, and he would say long stories that were sort of incoherent and broken English about wolves and the forest, and I was like, get me out of here. I want to go play Pac-Man. I had no interest in listening to him because I was a jerk and an idiot. And he had hugely interesting things to say, I'm sure. But the one thing I could tell was he was a very melancholy guy, and he missed the old country a lot. I never understood that. It's like, what are you missing? They were trying to kill you. But that tells you the huge power of the draw of your original, the culture from where you're from. And you can imagine why it's the case, right? If I said to any of you, I take away your wallet or your passport and I put you in the middle of Uzbekistan, right, by yourself. Now, today there's email, cell phones, there's a way around it. Imagine if I said, 1920, I took away all your information, put you in the middle of Uzbekistan and said, okay, now you have to live here the rest of your life. So I tried to, in a way, undo a little bit of what I thought was the nonsensical side to the American dream.
And in a way, there are always, and in particular in this movie, this relation to the other cultures, other forms of feeling, and at the same time, when you talk about this relation with Puccini, with opera and everything, yourself in your inconscient, do you have anyway something still coming from Europe? No, because it is enormous, they say, some of the critics are the most European American director. I don't think it's maybe because in a way you are very sensitive to things and things coming from Europe, even from.
People have asked me about part of what you're saying about the European film thing. I never saw myself, to the degree that I see myself at all, as anything other than a balding, middle-aged person. I think that I'm an very American director. I'm sort of stuck in like 1972. To me, the best films combined a kind of European commitment to thematic depth with an American commitment to narrative and maybe a sort of an Asian commitment to mood and atmosphere. Like what Francis Coppola was able to do in the early 70s with the first two Godfather films, to me, was that. And that was really what I was always trying to rip off. So I think it's just that American movies have changed a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like I see American movies now and they have no evidence of that kind of European early 60s, late 50s film culture, which is what I'm sort of still stuck with. Like I can't, I'm a total obsession with every Italian movie made from like 1945 to 1980. Like that period, I have to see everything. And if I don't see, a Fellini movie 4 times in 1 month, I get depressed, It's so obvious, by the way, how much this movie rips off La Strada that it's almost pathetic. I mean, the last third is quite different, but the first 2/3, I mean, I don't know if you know the movie La Strada, but it's stolen completely, which is why I find it really funny. Some people's like, yeah, I don't really, it's the structure of this, I don't really like it. It doesn't really work because that guy, the magician, he comes in the middle. I'm like, did you like La Strada? You wouldn't have liked it if it came out today. How does that feel, schmuck? No, yes, the answer is, of course, there's a lot of Europe in the movies, but I love Europe, so I can't avoid it. It's, I'm stuck with that curse.
The financing comes from Europe in this film.
It does, but it has nothing to do with it, really. You find certain people who you can con into giving you the money, and then they give you the money, and you're like, thank God somebody was silly enough to do that. And in this case, it just happens to be French people.
When I say that is not because the film is something to do, but like you said, now mostly of American movies, there is no relief. It's just like something without the characters doesn't have kind of something that gives a relief to them. It's like bande dessinée, like comics or something like that, And in your films, you feel that they not only you talk about their story, but themselves in their bodies and everything, they have something that is really, that what's...
Yeah, they have their own tragedy.
Well, see, I love this conversation because it makes me sound really much better than I am. It's great. Yes, the characters do have a kind of history, and no, but I will say this: America is fantastic at reinventing itself, and as a consequence, handling crisis and responding to crisis, and thinking anew and being fresh. But the flip side of that is that we really don't understand, respect history very much. So, you'll get Penn Station was this magnificent structure in New York, and Stanford White building, 1961 or 2 or whatever it was. In the middle of the night, they just tore it down. They wanted to tear down Grand Central Station in New York, which is this incredible building, and it took Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis to have a sit-in 1972 or 3 or whatever to make sure they didn't ruin the building. And so when we talk about this, I think that really the idea of the comic book is to remove history and the accumulation of culture and who we are and what makes us who we are. But to me, that's everything for character. I mean, character is history in a way. So I don't see how you can avoid it. I mean, I see everything that's wrong with me, I can conveniently blame on my grandparents. It's fantastic, I don't have to ever blame any problem I have on myself because I can see it in them. But I'm joking, but I really think that that's true. I think that people, it's like you can't run away from who you are, nor should you. And this is a central concept, I think, of character. I don't know why American films lost that, because they had it in a great way. I was in New York doing something like this for the New York Film Festival, and they were showing clips of movies that had inspired me, which was a little bit narcissistic, so I loved it. And they showed a clip from Grapes of Wrath, which I had selected.
I showed 2 days ago, yeah.
Grapes of Wrath? It's like the greatest movie of all time. Like, that guy is John Ford, ridiculous, a genius. And there's this end of the movie where he comes to say goodbye to his mother, and she says, "We ain't the kissing kind." And I wanted to burst into tears. And you get the sense in John Ford's films, which is the most American of directors, this incredible sense of history with the characters. And that's really depth. So that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, what's the alternative? Run around in tights or something? My son, he said to me, he says, very, very depressing thing. I have a beautiful 7-year-old boy at home, and he's just the greatest. And I was driving him to school one morning, and he said, "Daddy, why do all movies have men wearing underwear outside their pants?" And it made me very sad. My son saying, "Why do all movies why are they all superheroes?" I mean, he didn't even know what he was saying, but all the billboards he sees are, action figures like this, and there's no history with the Flash, And we're laughing, it's true.